Hello YouTube and welcome back. This is tutorial number 2 of C# development. In this video I told you we'll be focusing a little bit on the different types of variables. There are two main types of variables that you're going to be working with in C#. The first set is a string. We touched on that in the last video. In this video we'll go in a little bit more detail on what they are, how to use them, and I forgot to name mine. That's alright. You'll do that from time to time, I'm sure. The next is an integer. An integer is a number. Think 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. A regular integer cannot be a fractional number like 1.5 or 1.25, simply because it's tougher for the computer to save that number. There are ways to do that in other types of variables. We'll get to those later. For now, we're going to be focusing on these main two. You'll notice with a string variable, I saved it in the same way I did in the last episode with two double quotes, a pair of double quotes, and we will put our string value inside of those double quotes. With an integer variable, it's a little bit easier to save. All you need is the number. You can't have any spaces, commas, dots, anything. It's just the number. The reason for that is the compiler, which is what takes your code and makes it into a program, looks at these numbers, gets the actual value of the numbers, and saves that in your program. So the less fluff it has to go through, the better in the end. The faster it'll compile, normally it'll run a little bit faster, etc., etc. You set the value in the same way. You need your type declaration, which is in this case is either string or int. The name of your variable, in this case string variable or integer variable, those are how you access the values later. An equal sign that lets the compiler know that you're wanting to set the value. Note that it is a single equal sign, just one. That's important, we'll get to that later. And then the actual value of your variable, either in quotes for a string, a number for an integer value, then at the very end, just like every other line of code, a semicolon, which is a dot with a comma underneath of it or a comma with a dot above it. However you want to think about it is perfectly fine. Now, I'm going to run through a little bit more here. We'll go to console.readline to pause our program when it's done. What that actually does, by the way, and we'll go into that just a little bit right now. Console.readline waits for you to press enter, but it does more than that. It actually reads the line of text that you type in. We can actually get that line of text. Now, if you have a method, which as we said before is a name of a variable, in this case readline, with a set of parentheses after it, this right here is a method call. We're calling the readline method. If you hover over that, you can actually see those now because we fixed it. It will give you a little bit of information. This first word here, you'll see it says string. That tells us that this method will give us a string back when it is called. Doesn't matter what the method actually does, it will give us a string. And I'll show you how to get that here in just a second. After that, it gives us the location of the method, and the method itself, in this case it's console.readline. It is the readline method inside of the console class. We'll get into classes in the next video, get into more detail there. Underneath that, it gives us a little bit of a summary on what this method does. This particular one says reads the next line of characters from the standard input stream. The standard input stream is the console. Pure and simple, this reads the next line that you enter into the console and gives it back to us as a string. Okay? The exceptions underneath are the different exceptions that this method might throw if it has a problem. For now, we won't worry about those because it's highly unlikely we're going to hit those, and there's no reason to worry about them at all at this point. So, in order to get our string value out of console.readline, it's very simple. You make a new string, which is, we'll call it console return value, and you set it equal to your method. In this case, we're taking the string console return value, setting it equal to the console.readline method. That takes whatever string readline gives us and puts it into the console return value variable. Now, we can go farther and continue on past that by moving the end of our method, and as such the end of our program, down a little bit. Do a console.writeLine and throw our string, because all strings are the same, console return value into the console, and then wait on another line. We're going to wait on another line for the same reason we did in the last program, and that if we don't, it's going to exit, and we're not going to actually be able to see what happens. Okay? So, what we did is we took our console.readLine, and this time we set the return string. Remember that there's a string there. We can verify that it gives us a string. We're going to set that return string as the value of this console.return value. Now, you'll notice that I selected that all at once. A little bit of a shortcut. If you double click on a word, it will highlight the entire word. You can do this in more than just this integrated development environment, more than just in Visual Studio. In almost any program, if you double click on a word, it will select the entire word. It's a little bit different how it works. Some of them would select the whole line, but that's that. So, we set the return value of console.readLine as the value of console return value, and we're going to throw that string into this method. Now, if you hover over the WriteLine method, you'll notice that it starts with a void. A void is nothing. That means that this method returns nothing. We can't get any variables out of it. After that, console.WriteLine, that's the location and the method that we're calling, and then the value or the variable that we need to give that WriteLine for it to do what it needs to do. In this case, a string. And because we're giving it a string, console return value, right here, it will write the value of that to the console and then continue. Now, let's run this program and give it a value to show. It's pretty simple. This time we didn't tell it to do anything before it waits on us, so it won't display anything right away. But if we type something like test and then press enter, it will give us that right back because that's exactly what we told it to do. Press enter again, we'll close the program because that's the end. That's all she wrote. Well, that's all we wrote. Alright. Now, that is one of the simplest ways to work with variables right off the bat. Okay? Now, we've got our string. Now let's work with integers just a little bit. It's a little bit of a confusing piece right here because there is more than one copy of this WriteLine method. If you hover over where it says WriteLine, you'll notice that it says void, which means it returns nothing, console.WriteLine, and this time the parentheses are blank, which means that we don't need to give this any variables, any arguments in order for it to work. It's kind of confusing. It just told us we need to give it a string, right? Well, if you look immediately after that, you'll see it says plus 18 overloads. We won't get into a lot of detail on what an overload is. The simplest way to explain it right now is that that means that there are 18 other versions of this method. We can list all those. It's pretty easy. If you write console.WriteLine, you'll notice it gives us the same information over here with some other stuff in the in the actual method. If you put the WriteLine in and put in the left parenthesis, you'll notice it gives us just that very first, the simplest possible method. It doesn't have anything in the parentheses. If you press down on your keyboard, the down arrow right now, it will go to the next value. This one is a bool. I had forgot to mention that particular type of variable. As said, these aren't scripted. I throw them together. We'll talk about bools in just a second because that's important. We'll get to that. If you press down again, it talks about characters. A character is simply one specific character of a string. You send it a little bit differently. You don't gotta worry about that. It's rare that you'll use that. If you press down again, character, the square brackets, and then buffer. Buffer is a general term that we call a kind of a group that's used. That's alright, we'll get to that later, that's complex. Press down again, it gives us decimal value. A decimal is just a different kind of integer. You won't use it very often. We may use it in the future, but don't worry about it for now. Just remember that that's a different kind of number. Down again, double value. A double, once again, is just a different kind of number. Float, a different kind of number, really similar to double. We'll get to it later. Int, your integer, that's your number. We can give this our integer variable up there. We can throw it right in this method, and it will display it on the console. That's what we're going to do next, but we're going to continue through our list here. Long. That is a number, but it's a really long number. It's actually twice the size of an integer. Well, that's what its max size is. It can be 0. But it also takes up more memory. So more resources, bigger max number. Alright, next is object. An object, I told you we'll talk about that a little bit more in the next video. It's complex. An object is anything. If you pick up something off of your desk or right beside you on the couch, wherever you're watching this video right now, if you pick it up, you're holding an object in your hand. We can put anything we want into this method, and as long as it meets a few certain criteria, it will give us something in our console output. Press down again, string. We already know what a string is. Characters, numbers, all thrown together in a big mixing pot, displayed on the console. That's a string. U integer. A U that prefixes a number type, such as integer, means that it is unsigned, which means it can't go negative. It can't go negative, but it can go very high. It can go a lot higher in the positive values. It's unsigned. It doesn't have a positive or negative value. It's just the number. Press your down button again, you get U long. Same thing, just a U at the front. Now we get into more complex methods where there are 2 arguments. You'll notice that there is a comma. It says void console.writeLine string format comma object arg0. A comma simply shows a split between the first argument and the second argument. The farther down we go, you'll notice that the rest of them will have more than one variable. Okay, this one has 3: a buffer, an integer, and another integer. And we'll get into all. I don't use these very often. We probably won't use them, but we'll get into methods that have multiple variables. Probably in the next episode, maybe the one after it. The one after the next one, I plan on actually coding a project, showing you guys a little bit about the processes that go behind an actual coding session. Okay, so now that we know that we can put our integer straight into our console because we saw it as one of the possibilities, if we paste that in there, finish off our line of code, and hover over WriteLine, it's changed. The Visual Studio IDE, the Integrated Development Environment, looks at the code that you have and finds the method that matches. In this case, it's the one that has an integer. Still says there's 18 overloads because there's still 18 other methods. But the one that it cares about right now is the one that we need, which is very good. Void still returns nothing. Console.writeLine integer value. It's important. Not every method can take multiple different kinds of variables. Some methods that you can put a string into, you can't necessarily put an integer and expect the method to use it like a string. You have to change the integer into a string, which we can do in a future episode. A couple episodes down the line, we'll talk about changing the types of variables you're working with. This one says, writes the text representation of the specified 32-bit signed integer value, followed by the current line terminator to the standard output string. Layman's terms, that says it writes the number as a string to the console, and then ends the line and continues on the next line in the console. We still have our console pause, which we use console.readline as a pause because it's easy to use and there's no real negative effects of it. So, press our compile button. It will throw our value of 4 into the console and be done with it. Now, we're going to go on to bools. I cannot believe that I did not tell you what those are. A bool value stands for Boolean. It is either a 1 or a 0. A 1 is true, a 0 is false. You don't really have to understand that. The simplest way to think about it is that a Boolean is either true or false. Yes or no. You set the value by using bool as the type, give it a name, set it equal to, and then either true or false. You'll notice that sets up blue. It's blue after you type it. That is because it is a special keyword, just as bool, integer, and string, static, class, void, namespace, and using are. They're keywords. Most of the time they're type names. I call them type names, but they are actually keywords. So, bool, test bool equals true. Once again, with the same thing as we dealt with the int, you cannot simply throw a bool into any method and expect it to use it. It has to be supported. We know from going through the console.writeLine overrides that it is that it is supported by console.writeLine. So we can paste that right in there. We won't get any errors, and we can compile the method and it will probably say true. Okay. If we were to try and give this something that it cannot handle, it will make the whole line red, and we'll go ahead and show you that here real quick. Try and think of something that it doesn't know how to handle. We'll go new program. There. Now it'll turn red. Oh, it didn't turn red. And the reason that it didn't turn red is I told you that it has the object overload in there as well, and the object can take anything. That's my fault. I didn't think about that clearly. If you give it nothing, it will simply make the new line, because that's what it's designed to do. It'll tell you exactly what it's going to do if you hover over it. It's a little bit more technical terms than you're probably used to. So it says writes the current terminator to the standard output stream, which is the console. If we give it a string, we know it's going to write the string. Writes the specified string value followed by the end of the line, and then writes it to the console. So that's your basic intro to variables. Our next video will focus on classes and objects. We won't go into structs. Maybe we'll save structs until the couple videos down. They're a little more complex, and they kind of contradict what I'm going to show you in the next video. So, summary of this video. A variable of string, integer, and bool. A string is a word, can contain numbers, but characters in general, like all the characters on your keyboard that 1, 2, 3, 4, all your symbols and your letters can be put into a string. Your integer is any number, any solid number, not a fractional number, and your bool is either true or false. As stated, next video is I may do the programming video next. We might skip the classes and objects until the one after, but it'll be one of the next two videos, I promise. And we'll talk to you next time, maybe later tonight, maybe tomorrow. We'll just have to see how things all plan out. As said, these are unscripted. I do them when I have the time and the inspiration. See you next time.